Hey guys, welcome to Bastion Time. I'm your host Bastion. This is This Week in Nintendo News. Of course, mostly is about E3, but anyways, let's get to that news. Now, first of all, just to be clear, I know that most of you have already watched E3 and Nintendo's presence at E3, so you already know all of the main news items, so I'm not going to cover any of that stuff. I'm going to assume you already know that main stuff. I'm going to talk about stuff that took place either after E3 or after Nintendo's presentation, and then, since I know that most of you are kind of, interested in maybe listening to people talk about what their impressions of E3 were, I will go ahead and talk about that, but I'll do that at the end of this video, because, warning, I don't want to be a negative Nelson right up front. So, I enjoyed some things about Nintendo's presence at E3. On the whole, thought there could be a whole lot of improvement, but I'll get to that at the end of the video. So if you don't want to hear that kind of negative stuff, you just want to hear happy, cheerful Bastion news reporting, we'll start with that, and I'll let you know when we get to my impressions of E3. But anyways, the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that the composer for Breath of the Wild finally explains what that weird sound, or rather lack of sound, that weird space is. In the main theme, there's like one theme that plays, and suddenly there's like what sounds like, frankly, an amateurish audio edit. I record music, and so I know that if you don't fade out the very ends of a clip, it can create this weird artifact, and it sounds like they purposefully put that artifact in there. And she explains why. She says it's to represent Link kind of not existing for 100 years. Like he's conscious, and then he stops being conscious, and then 100 years later he wakes up. So it's to represent all of that time just vanishing from him, and that's an interesting idea. I give her props for that. Very interesting idea. But ever since I first heard that theme, was it last E3 or 2 E3s ago? I thought, oh geez, that's unfortunate. They made a huge audio error. It just sounds like a mistake. Even though I know the logic behind it now, it still sounds like a mistake, and that's kind of the most important aspect, you think, is to not want it to sound like you made a horrible mistake. But anyways, it's intentional, and now we know why. So of course the Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle thing was announced, but what was interesting to me is that there was a special collector's edition announced as well, and that across the board that's already sold out, which frankly shocks me because I don't know that I'm buying the regular version. Actually, I'm pretty interested in it, we'll see, but it's not at the top of my list or anything. It's just interesting that a collector's edition of this completely weird hybrid thing has already sold out. That's amazing. Specifically at GameStop, by the way. I want to make that clear. The GameStops in the US, that's where it's sold out at. So we know that Rocket League was announced, and then of course there's Minecraft, and so Sony, basically Nintendo was very excited to allow cross-platform play with Rocket League and Minecraft, meaning people on Xbox and PC can be playing with people on the Switch seamlessly. That's really cool. Sony, however, has said, oh no, we're opting out of that. You can only play with other people on the Sony network, whatever the heck that's called. So what? Why? Well, they say, we want to keep kids safe. That's... Nintendo is the one who wants to keep kids safe, and even they realize it's no big deal, so I don't quite know what Sony's up to, but that's some BS. If you want to read more about that, there is a link down there for you. Now, of course, with the Switch coming out, people are wondering, oh geez, is my 3DS going to become obsolete out of nowhere because the Switch is portable? Not to worry, Nintendo, besides announcing a whole bunch of really cool 3DS games like Samus Returns, which I'm definitely getting, besides announcing a whole bunch of cool 3DS games, they have said, we are supporting it well into 2018 and beyond. So don't worry, your 3DS will not be obsolete anytime soon. Our next story is an interview with Reggie Filsaime. Now, if you don't know, my personal opinions about Reggie, I don't really like the guy. I find him annoying, condescending, smarmy. I've only met him once, but not really met him, and in person, he further backed up all of my opinions on him. He's he's not really a gamer. He likes to portray himself as a gamer now that he's the president of Nintendo of America, but back before he was the president of Nintendo of America, he admits he didn't really do much gaming at all. So anyways, with all of that out of the way, let me just say that his answers to specific questions asked of him, questions that all the fans and some critics of Nintendo have been asking, he just doesn't get that these are not appropriate answers for those questions. He was asked things like, why for the love of Hylia is your smartphone required to be able to do voice chat on Splatoon 2? And he says, well, we feel like the phone is the better option. It's really robust. That's the other thing that I don't like about Reggie Filsaime, is that he uses a lot of corporate jargon like robust, and so it wouldn't surprise me if he uses the word synergy 5 times a day. But anyways, all that means is that the phone, of course, is very good for audio chatting. Duh. But why can't Nintendo create an audio chat thing? Well, basically they don't want to, is really what it comes down to. So his answer is like, well, the phone is already great. And so the interviewer, who was from Kotaku, was like, okay, but it seems a little cumbersome that I have to plug a headset into my smartphone and into the console as well. And Reggie's like, yeah, well, it's just one of the options that we have so far. We'll talk more later. It would not surprise me to learn that they have no other solutions. There's not going to be anything else except for that app. So, I mean, some third-party manufacturer might put out some kind of smart headset thing that just has that app pre-installed, but you've got to buy this super expensive specialized headset for the Switch. That might be a solution, but that's not really a good solution. So anyway, he just really irritates me with his responses because he doesn't get that we're frustrated about these kinds of things. He doesn't understand that we're fans of Nintendo. We're the ones, out there waving our fan flags, and he just kind of poops all over serious questions. Things like game releases for the Switch. Things like, why did you guys announce Metroid Prime 4 if you don't have anything to show for it? Not even a piece of concept art? All you have is a logo? That's how early in development you are? Why aren't you further in development? Why aren't there more Switch games that people actually want to buy right at the get-go? But anyways, as you can tell, I'm a little worked up about that. We'll get to that at the end of the video. I'm sorry, I remember now. I'm supposed to keep this nice and fluffy and just reporting the news. But anyways, let's get to the next story. If you have been to the dye shop in Breath of the Wild and you weren't quite sure what you were going to get out of spending some money and dyeing a piece of clothing, well, first of all, you can protect yourself by saving the game before you have that dye shop change the color. But if you are really curious what that's going to look like, there's actually a website that a fan made where you can take any piece of clothing and dye it any of the actual colors that they have in the dye shop to sort of get a preview of what that would look like, which is really cool because frankly I haven't risked dyeing anything. In the 2 playthroughs, I just finished my second playthrough today, my 2 playthroughs at Breath of the Wild, haven't dyed anything because the only one thing that I wanted to dye, I got the 8-bit Link amiibo in order to get the 8-bit Link tunic and hat, and I still can't get the, frustratingly enough, the sword. I almost said the F word there. I still haven't gotten the sword from it, the tunic, hat, and shorts, but not really. And then I got a second pair of all of that stuff, still trying to get the sword. So I thought, oh, well, that's fine. I'll dye them purple, so I can be Purple Link from 4 Swords. No such luck. You can't dye those ones, which is frustrating. But anyways, if you want to take a look at this website and see what's a preview of what these things are going to look like in the colors that you choose, there's a link down there for you. So a lot of people expected that at E3 we were going to get an announcement for Pokemon Switch, whatever the heck that's going to be. Not Pokken Tournament Switch, but like an actual Pokemon, and we all assumed it was going to be called Pokemon Stars, because Pokemon Sun, Moon, Stars, right? no such luck. However, Amazon UK, and this just goes to show that you cannot trust even Amazon. They put up a listing for Pokemon Stars for Switch for $20.30. No, not $20.30, for the year 2030. So clearly they have no idea what they're talking about. That game wasn't announced. It's probably, who knows what's going to happen as far as Pokemon Switch is, but Amazon UK clearly doesn't know. If you want to look at that ridiculous listing, there's a link down there for you. Our next story is about the fact that it was revealed during E3 that Master Mode for Breath of the Wild will have its own save file. Now, I still, for the life of me, cannot figure out why it doesn't allow you to do multiple save files of the regular game under your profile. In order to do my second playthrough of Breath of the Wild, I had to create a fake Switch profile in order to have a different save file. I don't understand why that's a necessity. But in any case, apparently at least Master Mode will not require that. It will create its own second save file. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I guess it will ask you to select between normal mode and master mode from the outset, but that's really cool. And of course, during the game, during E3, we noticed that for Super Mario Odyssey, there were a lot of different costumes that Mario can wear, and some of them seemed a little, I don't want to say racist, but some of them seemed a little interesting. But there's precedence. The fact actually is that most of these costumes are based on costumes that Mario has worn in the past. I'm not even familiar with some of these things, but there's an interesting image that shows the old school variation, like when some game where Mario's a chef or something like that. So he's wearing like the chef hat and that. And anyways, it's very interesting to see a side-by-side comparison of all of the costumes as they are in Odyssey in comparison to where they got their inspiration from costumes that Mario had worn in the past. So that's pretty cool if you want to check that out. Well, actually, that image is probably just right over here right now, isn't it? Oh, yes, there it is. But if you want to check it out more large, full size, there's a link down there for you. Oh, and then one final bit is, of course, we all found out that the DLC, the first DLC, is out June 30th, which is not too far from now. And I'm a little hyped for it. I have to admit, I was not at all hyped for it. I was like, whatever, I'll wait until the second DLC pack that has the new story comes out. I don't really care about this thing, but the Sword Trials thing looks pretty cool, I've got to say. I'm excited to try that out. I might dink around a little bit with Master Mode, but I don't know. It looks a little too hard, so we'll see. I'm sure I'll play it and force myself to finish it in Master Mode. But anyways, it looks cool. It's coming out June 30th, and of course they went over Majora's Mask, which does not call down the moon or anything like that. Doesn't turn Link evil. And then they showed how the Korok mask works, which I guess is actually pronounced Korok. I've always said Korok. But anyways, lots of fun. Can't wait to get that June 30th, not too far away. So that's about it. I have decided at this point, this video is already way too long. I may as well just do a second video and put that out tomorrow about my E3 impressions. So stay tuned for that. See you guys tomorrow for my E3 impressions. See you then. Bye, guys.